Are we or aren't we? Now we're on. Okay, game on.
Game on.
Game on.
All right, so that's how you apply textures, and that's how you distract by color. There's also, like I said, there are multiple ways to do everything in Photoshop. You can also just select regions and cut them out, and sometimes you just have to do that because your Photoshop model just won't cut it. Sometimes there's just so many surfaces and so many colors. So say like this, I didn't get a chance to color it, I would have to cut it out by hand if I wanted to, and it's not really that difficult. You just use the lasso tool or the polygon lasso tool that I usually use. So, but right now we're going to add more people, or we're going to add people. There's not any people yet. So let's toss in this person. I'm not sure which one is which, but whichever one of the people in Photoshop files. Yeah, these guys that are lost in our backyard. So we'll throw these guys in. They're already cut out for us, which is really nice. Got them from bionics.com, where they have a bunch of cutout stuff. I would use that a lot because they're really high quality and they're already cut out, so you don't have to cut them out. Again, when you bring them in, they have the transform tools, and we don't. Now we can just sort of transform them to the size that we want. And so if we do this, we'll, it kind of gets all goofy and you can warp them a lot. We want them to maintain the same size, so we're going to hold down Shift. And when you do that, it locks it so that it will move
without distorting them.
Without distorting, right. And so we want them to be standing probably in the middle of the deck. We're going to make them the approximate size, move them back there, make them look like they're supposed to, maybe about that big, something like that. Press enter. So we got our people in, relatively harmless. But now we want to make sure they're the right size, so that we're going to check out the dude layer and see that, what's the dude look like behind them? That maybe they should actually be a little bit smaller, because they're maybe about this guy's size. So Control T, transform again, hold Shift, make them a bit smaller. And when you do this, you'll notice that it's possible that that the wood texture that we made is the wrong size. It's too big. So you might have to go back in and make it smaller. Which is what's nice about this, is that we didn't spend a lot of time cutting it out, so we can actually go back in, and if we need to make multiple copies, or if we need to actually import it again and redo everything so that it fits right, we didn't spend a lot of time doing it. So we've got these people in here, and we want them to match the scene a little bit more. So we are going to mess around with those adjustment layers a lot now. So we want to tweak these guys so they fit right in with this photo. They are a little dull looking compared to the vibrancy of the wood texture. So we're going to just start throwing on adjustment layers so they start looking good. So under adjustment layers, we have a hue saturation layer, which we can apply to them, just like the curves layer. Let's see. And you want to make sure that everything's flipped right. See, here's the problem: is that it's in the wrong layer, or it's in the group, and we don't want it in the group. Close that group up. I would devote, like maybe said, devote a lot of time to making sure that your layers are organized. Okay, so we have our hue saturation layer, which is sitting over top of these guys, and we want to saturate them so that they match the wood. And we go to saturation, we just start amping it up, and you'll notice that everything in the layer again is starting to saturate, and we don't want that, so clip it, and we'll only be saturating the people. And you can really get them crazy, but I think probably just right about there is about right. And it's not a big difference, but I mean, it will make a difference when you have a whole image and all your people are at different saturations. This is really going to help.
Yeah, Chris, if you want the saturation just in that layer, you have to put it above.
Right, it's got to be above. So everything kind of stacks up on top of. So here's the layer with those people on it, and then up above it is where that layer is.
And that button you did to just make that layer is that little box at the end.
No, it's down. Wait, sorry, what?
To clip it to that layer.
You right click and say it'll say create clipping mask, not release, but it's called the clipping mask. That's the key. So these guys are saturated to my satisfaction, but now we want to make sure that their shadows are right. So we'll make a new saturation layer called curves, and we'll do the same kind of making it dark, clipping it so it's just them, and then Control I, the magic thing. Control I will change it, and now we can paint on where the shadows are going to be. We want them to be a lot softer because these are not hard shadows on surfaces. These are on people that are kind of more dynamic. And so if we really want to get into it, and if it's really high quality enough, we can literally come in and paint each side of this girl's foot, right? But we just want the whole, this is not a very high resolution image. So we will just kind of get their feet. Great. It's not showing up.
Is it locked?
Maybe it's showing up. Maybe it's just not dark enough. Because why did I make her darker? Oh. Is it just not strong enough?
I don't know.
Alright.
Try releasing that second clipping mask and see if you can make it work without, like, redo. You know what I mean, Chris?
What's that?
Redo the second clipping mask. Diffuse saturation.
Mine's on top.
That works? Oh. Hold on. There's something about our... Oh, that's what it is. I was drawing the wrong way. Alright, there we go. I was drawing in a weird way. Okay, so now we just want to kind of make their feet a little bit darker. And you can just come in and darken up their feet down there. Maybe the underside of the map. A little bit darker, maybe the insides because the light's coming from out. So there's that, we can darken them. And the opposite way we can lighten them. So if you do the same thing, if you come to another curves layer, and you, instead of going down, you go up and make it brighter. Do the same thing, clip it to the layer, Control I, you notice it goes away. And now you come in and zoom and color where you want the lighter parts to be. So where's the light hitting them? Maybe right here on this guy, the back of this guy's head, on his shoulder, on the back of her head. So you have kind of like this glow behind them. The side of her arm, his side down here. Depending on which direction the light's coming from. Looks like this guy's got a lot of light over here, so that's what we're going to light over here.
But this is also where you can cheat. So if you have an object in the background that's starting to blend in with these guys, you can then cheat through saturation because, again, this is not true shadows being cast like a photo. This is you manipulating an image so that you can manipulate the viewer.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So you can see, without these layers, this is what those guys look like. They look kind of flat. Start to add those layers, they get a little more dimension. And it adds up, it makes a big difference. And it's also nice, so say for example, like, for this image, it looks like the shadows are coming from the left, so it works well when we do that. But if we do this again, if we just do the curves, we can make it so that the shadows are coming from the opposite side. So we can come up to curves and do all this again, and invert, and then we can make the shadows coming from this side, and darken or lighten this side. And then do darken the other side. So we can actually darken the side of him that has the light on it. So it looks like actually this is the darker side. So that's how you can change the direction of shadows on people, which is really helpful when you get somebody and there's a really bright light on them and they're a perfect person for your rendering, but the shadows are wrong. You can come in and switch the shadows so they can fit in your image and it's that much more believable. And then if we want to add them underneath, like, so now they're here and we want the shadows underneath them. Now that we have this layer made for our wood texture, our curves layer, we click on the mask, we come in, get the brush tool out, and we can paint their shadow underneath. So they start to fit a little better. And then you want to pay attention to the intensity of your shadows versus this guy's shoes. I mean, his shoes do not match with how dark it is underneath him. So we'll find the darker one and darken his shoes up so that he fits a little better like that. So it's real small things and it's real nitpicky, but it will add up and make your image a lot more believable in the long run.
And the other thing is that you can't do this well unless you really look around thoroughly, right? So this is what, when I have you guys going out and sketching and drawing what you see, the entire purpose of that is so that you learn to really see things, not only as they exist, but also then to reinterpret it so that you understand how to do this. Whether it's a pencil, Photoshop, SketchUp, whatever tool you're using, you still have to understand what does and doesn't read as somewhat believable, right? And then you have to understand what you're trying to get to pop to the foreground. So sometimes you cheat. The beauty of drawing, whether it's Photoshop, freehand, sketching with a pencil, or with a pen or with a marker, is that you are manipulating the viewer. You are intentionally putting marks down, right? It's not exactly like a photo, because if it were, we would take a photograph. And you can't manipulate the viewer the same way. Does that make sense? But it takes practice. It takes hours and hours of practice and really looking at something to see how it reads. And then there's the scalar issue, right? So as you zoom out from something, you don't need the same level of detail. How many of you have been trapped in the AutoCAD files, right? Where you're working on a drawing for like 4 hours, and then you go and you put it in your final construction packet, and you suddenly realize it's only this big, but you spent 4 hours on that drawing, right? I've done it. Because you get so trapped. And so the trick with any of these things is to zoom out and remember what it looks like at that large scale, so you're not like getting into the one little tiny line.
There are ways to do it too with this texture. So say this isn't necessarily the scale that you would need to do it, but say one way that's really good to add kind of dimension and the idea that there's depth to an object is saturation. So things that are closer to you are going to be a lot more saturated. Things further away are going to be less saturated. So if we'll clip this here and we can turn the saturation down, you notice it gets closer to, all the way down is black and white, but if we go down to maybe about like that, and then we do the same invert thing where we can start to paint on, we can paint on, say back here, and make sure that you have like a soft brush, not a hard one. Right click and you can change the hardness. Hard is like that, where you can see hard lines, and soft is, softer. Hard, soft. Yeah. Sorry, did you guys see Photoshop more? So now you can start to paint on in the back here where the less saturated areas will be. So layer after layer, you start to add up back here, and you can't necessarily see it right away on this end of the screen, but it starts to add up. And when you have big distances, so say this whole green area was grass, and you did this to it, you unsaturate this area and saturate the area towards the forefront, the foreground, and it starts to add up and help give you depth. I mean, it's just another tool to manipulate the image. Maybe not in this instance, but other instances. So these guys are in, we're happy, they have shadows. We got our ground plane in. Now we're going to start seeing what else we have in here. We have, how much time we got? We got time for a tree or a bush. Or a bush.
Yeah. Bush. Shrubbery.
Shrub. Excuse me. Shrub. Bush. And then I have this forsythia, and it's got some nice color. And actually, I want to add it in kind of over here because I'm going to play with some water textures underneath it. And so it's kind of in the wrong. It doesn't fit well. We'll flip it horizontally. It fits a little better that way. Even though this bush is really, shrub is very large in real life, we'll probably make it work right here. So here's our shrub. No way. And yeah, so now we're going to add, what we're going to do is add, we do the same things we've been doing, is coming in and adjusting it so that it fits the way we want. We'll do another curves layer where we crank it up and paint, right along the top for some select areas. And then you can do the same with the darkening.